Today on The Real Story, as Donald Trump's legal challenges continue, we're talking to the attorney who says he shouldn't be on Connecticut's ballot, where the constitutional case stands and how it could impact other races and elected officials right here. But first, now that we're past the primary, we're taking a look back at the capital city's mayoral race, from low voter turnout to what's wanted in the next leader. Arunan Arulampalam is here with us on the heels of his nomination victory. Good morning, and thanks for joining us here on The Real Story. I'm Emma Wulfhorst. Key races across the state of Connecticut this primary, but not many people actually making it to the polls. In our continuous coverage of all the races, the capital city, of course, on most of Connecticut's minds. So joining me now, Arunan Arulampalam, now the Democratic nominee for the 2023 Hartford mayoral race. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. So first off, congratulations on, winning the primary Tuesday night. I was there during the watch party, watched your speech as you came down and spoke with supporters. There was a lot of emotion, a lot of celebration there. So tell me about primary election day and leading up to that, and how are you feeling now?
Well, you put your heart and soul into this thing for 9 months, and you get to meet so many people along the way and have so many relationships, and it was just really validating to see all of those people in every single part of the city turn out. We've had really great support all across the city, and I think a lot of people who really believed in the vision and bought into what we were talking about, but also really believed in a unified Hartford and were ready to come together.
And talking about that support, I know when we spoke ahead of Tuesday, you were saying you really feel like you saw support from, the West End, the North End, really all ends of the city. But, we did see low voter turnout, I think just about 21% at the end of the day. Now, we always see low turnout in primaries and municipal elections, and we also have low voter registration here in Hartford. But do you have any message to those who maybe were supporting, but at the end of the day didn't show up to the polls? Yeah.
Well, I think we saw it all across the state, unfortunately, and it's something that we, especially as Democrats in urban municipalities, need to take really seriously. And it's all of our jobs to make sure that people feel engaged. I think it's my job, if I become mayor for the next 4 years, to make sure that people see that their voice and their votes really have an impact on how their government's run.
And in that vein, when it comes to those who aren't casting the ballot, we have heard from a lot of people, some are just saying they're busy or they don't have the time on a Tuesday, but some, do feel like any leader, isn't listening or won't end up helping them. What have you heard from people, and anything more about getting those voters engaged?
I think, like in any election, you hear a lot of cynicism, but we also heard a lot of real hope and optimism. I think the fact that as a newcomer to this political arena, as somebody taking on two really established opponents, the fact that so many people were willing to put their faith in me and in this campaign and the vision for what's possible, I think speaks to also a level of hope within the city of Hartford, and that's what I hope to build upon.
Sure. So part of the reason you've had such, high community support is you've really, pegged yourself as this Hartford man, living in the city, raising a family in the city. So you've also solicited support, though, from across the state, not just here in Hartford. And, you say everyone should have a stake in what goes on in the capital city, but some people have criticized you for trying to garner that support or raise money in other parts of the state. Any response to that?
Yeah, I think that the attacks when you get to the end of a campaign tend to get a little desperate and out there. Anybody who's ever run and won has built a broad coalition that includes people within the city, but also folks from outside of the city. And frankly, I think it's the role of a mayor to be able to make the case that everyone should be bought into what's happening in Hartford. Everybody should be bought into what's going on in our capital city, and should be encouraged and want to invest in the future of Hartford.
Do you feel like you see that happening at all as you were out campaigning for this primary and then, going on to the race in November? Have you felt like other people in parts of the state do care right now about what's happening in Hartford?
I do, and I'll give credit where credit's due. I think Mayor Luke Bronin really made that case to a lot of suburbs, but I think it's probably a little easier now than it was 8 years ago to make that case. But I think everybody sees that the challenges of Hartford aren't just shared by Hartford residents, but the benefits of a strong and thriving Hartford wouldn't end at our city lines, that everybody to whom this is the center of the region, and for everybody across the state to whom this is your capital city, the success of Hartford is so important to our region and to our state, and I think more and more people are buying into that.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit about, what people and voters have seen in you, and especially if you were to go on to become the next mayor of Hartford. Most of Connecticut's mayors have been white and in an extremely diverse city. For you, why is representation and culture so important?
I think it's really important to affirm the voices of representation throughout our city, and that looks a lot of different ways. But obviously, some of my opponents in this cycle kind of made game of making fun of my name and my heritage. And I think a lot of people in Hartford responded really strongly to that, because a lot of people feel really personally what it's like to be othered. They feel really personally what it's like to be an immigrant or to be from a community that is othered in some other way. And being able to reflect that diversity is something I'm proud of. Sure. And also, it's something we should celebrate. Our diversity, our richness as a city comes from our difference, and it's something that I think all of us celebrate.
And we're in, switching gears a little bit to the issues, we're in a national housing crisis, not just here in Connecticut and in Hartford, but across the country. This is something that Connecticut especially is feeling. This is a sector you do have a lot of experience in, leading Hartford's land bank organization, and you've said this would be a priority for you as mayor, housing. What are some of the things you'd be looking to get done right off the bat in this realm?
Well, I think of it in two veins. One is for the population of ours that are renters and would like to continue to rent. And Hartford's got the lowest home ownership rate in the state, so 76% of our population are renters. In my neighborhood, it's 93% of the population. Ensuring that they have the protections to live in safe and decent housing, and ensuring that that housing is made affordable, and that we encourage more and more local landlords, more and more Hartford-based landlords who really care about the neighborhoods, care about the city and the community, and using our tools to aggressively go after slumlords through blight enforcement and taking over properties when folks aren't taking care of them. But also building up home ownership. I mean, for 24% of our population to own homes, while Glastonbury across the river here has an 80% home ownership rate. Right. I mean, you can see why there's such a racial wealth gap in our state, and creating the opportunities to build wealth locally, to build a middle class in this city that have been absent for Hartford residents for so long is really important, because if we don't make those investments now, then in 20 years we're going to be talking about the same issues, the same problems in the city of Hartford. And
how do you think you can balance downtown development as well as housing creation and neighborhoods?
I think they play into each other. I think having strong and vibrant neighborhoods is going to allow for us to have a strong and vibrant downtown core, and okay. It allows people in neighborhoods to feel more bought into downtown and feel more a part of the progress of downtown. But it also invites investment into our city as a whole. If Albany Ave and Main Street and Park Street and all of our commercial corridors are mini city centers and have real thriving small businesses that are owned by Hartford residents, if we have housing that invites people in and allows them to build families here, that allows our residents to stay and build wealth here, it's going to make a more thriving city, and it's going to make for a more vibrant and thriving downtown. And
you were obviously the candidate endorsed by both the Democratic Town Committee as well as current Mayor Luke Bronin. He's tried to do a lot of work in this sector. Are there any programs or advancements that he's made, if you were to be elected the next mayor, that you want to continue further or change?
Sure, a number of strides. One of the things that I think was really helpful coming out of COVID is we had this HeartLift grant, and some of those businesses are still in the process of getting up and running, right. But hopefully by the end of this year we'll see a Pratt Street that's completely full and thriving and buzzing again. Those sorts of investments in storefront retail that bring feet to the street are so important. And I'd like to see a little more of that maybe stretched out into our neighborhoods along commercial corridors.
Okay.
But that kind of a program, both for our downtown and for our neighborhoods, is the kind of thing that brings folks into the city. It's the kind of thing that builds small businesses within the city as a backbone to our economy, and creates a vibrancy that I think Hartford is really striving towards and growing towards.
So there was a pretty large slate of Democratic candidates on, in this primary race running for the nomination, a few who didn't make the ballot, and even more will be on the general election ballot in November. So if you're elected as the next mayor in November, what are you learning and possibly taking from other people's campaigns as this race goes on?
Well, I think Hartford has a large set of ideas and voices, and there's so many people who add to that conversation. And I've, begun reaching out to folks who have been associated with campaigns of my opponents and political leaders all across the city and community leaders all across the city who weren't quite ready to support me in this primary, and ask them to help me bring the city together, because it's so important that we bring all the voices to the table and that we really listen to each other and hear each other out, but that we're also rowing in the same direction. If we love the city, we've got to want people to come together and fight together for the future of this city. We can't tear each other apart.
We talked a lot about, low voter turnout in this election, as well as some of those reasons, not showing up to the polls, maybe not having faith in the current leader or the candidates. But it's very clear that Hartford, does want better. So with our last bit of time here, what does a better Hartford look like for you?
Well, I'll start with my street and my neighborhood. I'm raising 5 young kids in the city. And the kind of neighborhood that I hope they grow up in is one in which they feel safe wherever they go, one in which there's real opportunities both for them and for the kids who go to public school with them, to have real jobs, real careers in the city, to grow old in the city, to build families in the city, for the next generation to be able to own homes or own small businesses in the city, to be able to build a Hartford from within. From the strengths we already have. We are so culturally diverse. We have such rich history. We have so many strengths on which to build upon. And we don't need to replicate Boston or New York. We have something really unique and special right here in Hartford. And to me, my hope for the future of Hartford is that we build on those strengths, that we do something different and build a unique city around all of the strengths that we already have and around the people that we already have.
Well, that's all the time we have with you, but thank you so much again for joining us.
I appreciate it.
And
Thanks for your time.
Sure, we'll be checking in again as the race for November continues.
I hope so. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So there's still more to come, though, on The Real Story. The Constitution and Connecticut are clear. An insurrectionist is disqualified from holding office. So what does that mean for former President Donald Trump, and even more locally, a mayoral candidate here in Connecticut? Will the former president be taken off your ballot come election 2024? We're breaking it down with the attorney who took on the challenge. Stay with us.